The rain had started before sunset, a soft tapping on the windows that grew heavier as the sky darkened. Emma barely noticed at first. She was too focused on a client deadline, her face bathed in the pale glow of her laptop screen. Outside, the city had gone quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes with steady rain, where even distant cars sounded muffled and the world felt sealed in. Emma liked it that way. Solitude didn't bother her. She sat cross-legged on the couch, sipping lukewarm coffee, working through another logo revision. Her apartment was small but cozy. One bedroom, a cramped kitchen, and a living room that doubled as her workspace. Her cat, Miso, had disappeared into some unseen corner hours ago, likely curled up behind the radiator. At exactly 9:03 p.m., her Wi-Fi dropped. The connection bar on her screen blinked red, then empty. Emma groaned. She leaned forward, refreshed the page, waited. Nothing. The lights flickered once. Just once. Not enough to panic, just enough to notice. She sighed and stood up, stretching her legs. Her phone still had service. She opened the router app, trying to restart it remotely. But something was off. Under Connected Devices, there were two listings. Her laptop, labeled Emma's MacBook, and another, unnamed device. She clicked on it. No details. No IP address, no type. Just a blank icon. She paused, stared at it for a moment, then tapped Remove Device. The page reloaded. The device disappeared. She chalked it up to a glitch. Maybe her neighbor's signal crossed over. The walls in this building were paper thin. She returned to the couch and opened a downloaded file to keep working offline. Then came the sound. A soft creak. Behind her. She turned slowly. Nothing was there. Just the rain against the window and the hum of her refrigerator. She stood, walked over to the window, and pulled the curtain slightly. The street outside was empty. Dim streetlights shimmered in puddles. On her way back to the couch, she stopped. Her smart speaker, one she barely used, lit up in a soft yellow glow. No one had said anything. She stared at it, her breath held. The light faded. Silence again. Maybe it was just picking up the rain. Or the sound of her footsteps. She turned it off manually. Back at her laptop, the Wi-Fi was back. She refreshed her email. A new message popped up at the top. No subject. No sender. She opened it. There was no text. Just a timestamp. You looked out the window at 9:11 p.m. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. She hadn't told anyone. No one had messaged her. No one was in the apartment. She looked around slowly. Her chest tightened. The sound of the rain grew louder. But not from outside. It was coming through the speakers. Emma stared at the screen, the timestamp still glowing in the email. Her heart pounded louder than the rain in her ears. She reached up and unplugged her speakers, silencing the rainfall that shouldn't have been coming from them in the first place. She told herself to stay calm. To be rational. It was just a prank. Someone hacking her email, maybe a virus. But her chest felt tight, like the air in the room had thickened. She looked around again. The apartment felt unfamiliar all of a sudden, like she'd stepped into someone else's space. She locked her laptop and stood. Every light in the apartment was already on. She walked from room to room, flipping switches anyway, checking the bathroom, opening closet doors. Nothing. Just her and the constant patter of rain. She moved to the front door and checked the lock. Still secure. The deadbolt was turned. But something about the door frame made her pause. At the very bottom corner, where the paint was chipped, there was a thin smudge. But, like someone had touched it with wet gloves. She crouched and rubbed it with her thumb. It smeared like grease. She backed away. Trying to keep her thoughts from spiraling, she sat at her desk and opened her webcam software. She rarely used it. The lens light flicked on. She expected to see herself in the middle of the frame. But she wasn't centered. She was off to the side. The camera had been tilted, subtly, just a few degrees, but enough that the hallway behind her was fully visible. She adjusted the camera, confused. She hadn't touched it in weeks. She checked the video history. Surprisingly, there were saved clips. There shouldn't have been. She clicked the most recent one. The screen showed her apartment at night. Dim lighting. The camera was recording while she was asleep. She could see herself on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, facing away from the lens. But in the video, at 3:17 a.m., something moved. A shadow passed through the hallway. Not a reflection. Not a trick of light. A shape. Human. Emma's throat closed. She paused the video. Boom. Watched it again. There was a man-shaped figure moving quietly across the hallway. Slow, deliberate. Berf. The clip ended. No sound. No clue how long it had been there. She backed out of the file and checked the other folders. One was labeled Stream Logs. Her mouse hovered over it. Inside were dozens of short recordings, each just a few minutes long. Her working, eating, sleeping. Some from angles her webcam couldn't see. That's when it hit her. Someone else had been watching. The rain kept falling, steady and cold against the windows, as if trying to drown out the noise inside Emma's head. She stood in the middle of her living room, the glow from her laptop casting eerie shadows on the walls. Someone had been in here. Recently. Watching her. Filming her. She grabbed her phone and called the building manager. No answer. Straight to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. What would she even say? Her hands trembled as she opened the hallway closet. Coats, an old vacuum, a box of tangled Christmas lights. She yanked them out one by one, checking the back wall, the floor, the ceiling. Nothing. She checked the bathroom. Under the sink. Behind the shower curtain. The linen cabinet. All empty. But the kitchen? Something had always felt off about the kitchen layout. The counter stopped short a few feet before the wall, creating a strange little dead space behind one of the cabinets. She had assumed it was just poor design. Emma dropped to her knees and pulled open the lowest cabinet door. Just cleaning supplies. She reached in and knocked on the back wall. Hollow. Her breath caught. She pushed harder. The thin board flexed, then popped free with a soft crack. Behind it was a narrow opening. A crawl space. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing dust, cobwebs, and a path. The narrow passage extended about 4 feet before turning left, disappearing into black. She hesitated, heart racing, then slowly crawled inside. The air was cold and smelled like old wood and something faintly sour. Around the corner, the space opened into a small compartment, maybe 6 feet wide, just tall enough to crouch. There was a blanket, a pillow, crumpled food wrappers, an empty plastic bottle. Someone had been living here. Emma's flashlight trembled in her hand. In the corner, a stack of papers sat folded neatly. She reached for them. They were drawings. Sketches of her. In different outfits. At her desk. Sleeping on the couch. Some from angles she didn't even recognize, drawn with eerie detail, almost lovingly. Her eyes, her hands, her cat. The final page was different. It was a floor plan of her apartment. And marked in red ink was the crawl space. She backed out slowly, her breath shallow, her body shaking. She sealed the panel shut, stuffed the cleaning supplies back in, and tried to act like everything was normal. She stood in the center of her apartment again, but now she felt like an intruder. Someone had lived in her walls. Watched her. Studied her. Maybe they still were. The silence pressed in. Then, from the hallway, Miso the cat darted out, wide-eyed and tense, and ran straight under the couch. Emma followed the direction it came from. A soft clicking noise echoed from the dark, like someone slowly dragging their nails along the inside of the drywall. Emma barely slept that night. She stayed on the couch, back pressed against the armrest, clutching a kitchen knife with both hands. The crawl space remained sealed, but the memory of what she saw inside stayed sharp, refusing to fade. By morning, the rain hadn't stopped. The windows remained fogged over, and the world beyond them felt distant, unreachable. She called the police. They arrived late in the afternoon. 2 officers. Young, polite, and skeptical. She told them everything, about the email, the webcam recordings, the crawl space. They searched the apartment thoroughly, even opened the panel behind the cabinet. But the space was empty. The bedding and trash were gone. No sketches. No food wrappers. No sign anyone had ever been there. The officers exchanged glances. One made a note on his pad. The other gently suggested she may be under stress, working long hours, not getting enough sleep. They filed a report and left. Emma sat alone in the kitchen after they were gone, staring at the open cabinet. Someone had cleared it out. While she was still in the apartment, her laptop was still open. She turned it toward her and opened a browser, unsure what she was even looking for. Out of desperation, she typed into the search bar, "How to tell if your apartment is being live-streamed." The results were mostly forums. Scattered, paranoid threads filled with half-lucid warnings about hidden cameras, compromised routers, dark web traffic. One post stood out. It was old, buried deep on a forum with a black background and glitching text. "If you think you're being watched, check here." A link followed. Not to a mainstream site. The URL was long, messy, hidden from standard search engines. Emma clicked it. The page was simple. A black screen. At the center, a video box. Below it, a viewer count, 37 watching now. The video loaded. She felt her stomach drop. It was her apartment. A live feed. From the corner of the ceiling, facing the living room. She could see herself, right there, in real time at the kitchen table. She looked up. There was nothing on the ceiling. No lens. No visible device. She stood slowly, raised her hand on screen. The video followed. She opened the chat tab below the video. Most of the comments were anonymous usernames. Dozens of them. She found the tunnel. "Can't believe she's still there. Bet she runs tonight. Check the mirror at 3. Emma slammed the laptop shut. Her skin felt cold. The room swam. Someone was live streaming her life. Right now. And others were watching. Commenting. Waiting. She ran to the breaker box and shut off the main power. Everything went black. For the first time in days, the rain was the only thing she could hear. Then her phone buzzed. A new message. "Power won't stop the stream." Emma dropped her phone. It clattered against the floor, screen flickering for a moment before going dark. Her knees felt weak. She leaned against the wall, gripping the edge of the counter to stay upright. No power. No light. And yet, the stream was still live. She lit a candle from the drawer and placed it on the table. The flame shivered slightly, casting warped shadows on the ceiling. Her reflection in the darkened window looked unfamiliar, tired, pale, eyes too wide. She sat down and tried to think. How were they watching? She checked every vent, every socket. She unscrewed the smoke detector, took apart the lamp, pulled her smart TV off the stand. Nothing. No hidden cameras. No wires. The crawl space was still empty. Or so it seemed. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number, behind glass. Where you can't see. Emma turned slowly toward the bathroom. She walked down the hall, candle in hand, passing her own framed photographs. She stopped in front of the mirror. Her reflection stared back, flickering with the flame. She leaned in. At first, nothing. Just herself, the soft orange glow, the endless hiss of rain behind her. But then she saw it. In the corner of the mirror. Not in the room. In the reflection. A faint red. Almost invisible. She stepped back and looked directly at the spot in the bathroom. Nothing there. Just white tiles. She looked again in the mirror. The red dot blinked. It was a camera, somehow embedded behind the mirror, masked so perfectly it didn't show unless viewed at just the right angle. Her stomach twisted. She stepped away and pulled her phone back off the ground, gripping it tightly as she reopened the dark stream site. The chat was still active. The number of viewers had gone up. 53 watching now. The messages poured in. She found the mirror. "Don't forget the vent. He's going to be pissed." Emma's hands trembled as she scrolled. Then a new message popped up, highlighted. It wasn't from a random user. It was a direct message, flagged differently. From Rainwatcher. "You weren't the first. You won't be the last. Look in the ceiling vent by the bed. He leaves something behind." Emma's heart pounded in her ears. She stepped into the bedroom, the candlelight barely keeping the shadows at bay. Above the head of her bed, in the center of the ceiling, was a small ventilation grate. She hadn't touched it since she moved in. Balancing on the mattress, She reached up and unscrewed the cover with trembling fingers. The metal panel came loose with a soft groan. Dust poured down. Inside was a small box. A worn shoebox, sealed with masking tape. She pulled it out and lowered herself back down, setting it on the bed. Her breath fogged in the cold, still air. She peeled back the tape and opened it. Inside were photographs. Dozens. Maybe more. None of her. Different women. Different apartments. Different cities. All of them looking directly at the camera, unaware. And under the last photo was a note, typed on old paper. He only stops when the watchers get bored. Emma sat on the floor beside her bed, the box of photographs open before her. The faces stared up at her, some smiling, some asleep, some unaware, all caught in frames they never agreed to be part of. The note haunted her. He only stops when the watchers get bored. She flipped through the photos again, trying to memorize the backgrounds. Different rooms. Different decor. But one caught her attention. A woman sitting on the same couch Emma owned. Same stains on the armrest. Same uneven leg on the left side. Her couch. The woman had lived here before her. Emma dug through the box, searching for more clues. And there it was, taped to the back of another photo. A folded piece of paper, yellowed and thin, like it had been passed around too many times. She unfolded it. It was a lease agreement. For her unit. Tenant, Julia Hecht. Lease term, November 2022 to January 2023. Only 3 months. Emma had moved in during February. She grabbed her phone and searched the name. After a few dead links, she found it. A local news article. But no photo. Woman missing after disappearance from Midtown apartment. Julia Hecht, 28, last seen leaving her building on January 12. No signs of struggle. Apartment found locked from the inside. Investigation ongoing. Emma sat in stunned silence. Julia hadn't left. She had vanished. In this apartment. Her phone vibrated in her hand. Another message. Rain watcher, check under the floorboards near the bedpost. That's where Julia left her last message. Emma hesitated, then moved to the corner of the room. The old wood beneath the carpet groaned under her steps. She pulled the rug back. The floorboards were slightly misaligned near the edge of the wall. Using a butter knife from the kitchen, she pried one of them up. It cracked free, dry and splintered. Below it was a space just deep enough to hide something. She reached in and pulled out a notebook. Thin, bent, pages curled with age. Julia's handwriting filled the first page. If you're reading this, it means you've seen him. The next few pages detailed everything: strange noises, misplaced objects, devices recording her. The watchers. The livestreams. Julia wrote about the man who lived in the walls. Who only appeared at night. Who sometimes stood behind the bathroom mirror for hours. She had tried to run. But every time she left the apartment, he followed. She could see his face in reflections. In glass. In puddles. Then the entries stopped. Just one final sentence on the last page. He watches through the rain. Emma looked up slowly. Her apartment felt colder than ever. Outside, the rain intensified. A small drop rolled down the inside of the bedroom window. The droplet slid down the inside of the glass, leaving a faint trail behind. Emma stared at it, heart beating like a warning bell in her chest. It wasn't condensation. The room was too cold, the air too dry. She stepped back from the window, her candle nearly flickering out from the draft she hadn't felt before. There was movement. Subtle. Behind the walls. Not footsteps. Not scratching. Just the faint, rhythmic pressure of someone shifting their weight. Boards creaking softly. A presence she couldn't see, but knew was there. Emma grabbed the notebook again, flipping back through Julia's entries. One phrase kept coming up. He lives where the blueprints don't go. She needed help. Not the police. They hadn't believed her the first time. Instead, she opened her laptop again, ignoring the stream, and searched for the building's original construction plans. The property management site led her nowhere. But deep in a forum on subletting regulations, someone had uploaded a PDF of the building's structural layout from 1993. Emma downloaded it. As she scanned the blueprint, she realized something terrifying. Her apartment unit, 6B, had a thicker wall on the west side than the others. Almost 2 feet thicker. No other floor plan showed that buffer. She pulled up a flashlight app on her phone and ran it along the western wall, behind the couch, behind the bookshelves. Her knuckles tapped against drywall. Until they didn't. One section sounded dull. Hollow. The difference was slight but unmistakable. She grabbed a screwdriver and started peeling back the baseboard. Dust filled the air. Her lungs burned. Her muscles trembled. Still she worked. Chipped away the drywall, inch by inch. Then she saw it. A hidden door. No knob. Just a seam, masked by layers of paint and age. She pressed her hand against it. Nothing. She pushed harder. It groaned. And opened. A narrow hallway stretched into blackness. Unlit. Claustrophobic. The stench hit her immediately, old sweat, mildew, something animal and rotting. The air felt moist, alive, pulsing. She turned on her flashlight. The corridor was lined with insulation and exposed studs. Wires dangled from the ceiling. Scraps of food. A discarded sock. A cracked phone with a dead battery. Emma moved slowly, each step echoing unnaturally. Then she reached the first room. It was small. Claustrophobic. A mattress on the floor, no frame. A tower of empty water bottles. Stolen clothing, hers, Julia's, others. And on the wall, dozens of printed photos. All of her. Sitting. Sleeping. Laughing on a phone call. Each photo had a date and time written beneath it. And in the center, one freshly taped photo. Her, from behind, opening the hidden door. The photo had been taken minutes ago. She dropped it in horror and spun around. Farther down the hallway, at the end, she saw him. A figure. Standing completely still in the dark. His body barely visible. But his eyes glowed, reflecting the light. Watching. Emma froze. The figure didn't move. He stood at the far end of the crawlspace hallway, motionless, head tilted just slightly to the left. She could barely make out his shape, tall, thin, arms too long, fingertips nearly brushing the floor. His face was covered in shadow. She took a shaky step backward, the flashlight in her hand trembling. The light caught something metallic near his feet, tools. A hammer. Wire cutters. A cracked tablet showing the stream feed. He took a single step forward. His head ducked to avoid a pipe. Slow, deliberate, like he'd done it 1,000 times. Emma turned and bolted. She scrambled out of the hidden hallway, kicking the door shut behind her. No lock. No latch. Just paint and fear. She dragged the couch in front of it. Then the bookshelf. Her hands moved without thinking, stacking anything heavy between her and that thin doorway. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't dare look. Breathing hard, she stepped back into the hallway and turned toward the bathroom to splash cold water on her face. She flicked on the light. And screamed. The mirror was covered. Not with tape. Not broken. But covered from behind. A sheet of plastic, stapled crudely to the back, distorting the glass, giving her reflection a blurry, misshapen look. Like she was being watched through fog. She leaned close. Something moved behind the plastic. Not a face. A mouth. Pressed right against the mirror's inner surface. Smiling. No eyes. Just the long stretch of a grin, wide and unnatural, lips pulled tight over yellow teeth. Breathing slowly. Fogging up the glass from the inside. Emma backed away. The bathroom light flickered. Then died. She slammed the door shut and ran for the front door. Her keys were in the bowl by the coat rack. She snatched them, hands fumbling, twisting the lock. It wouldn't open. She tried again. Deadbolt jammed. Another message buzzed onto her phone. Rain Watcher. He doesn't let you leave until the watchers are satisfied. Emma screamed and threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. Outside, the rain was a curtain now. Thick, suffocating. She could barely see the streetlights. Her apartment was a box, sealed and watching itself, a loop of glass and eyes and teeth. She stood in the center of the living room. Alone. Until a whisper echoed from the vent. Don't stop performing. Emma stood in the center of her apartment, chest heaving, eyes darting from wall to wall. Every vent. Every mirror, every piece of glass now felt like a mouth, a lens, an eye. She turned in slow circles, feeling them watch her. 53 people on the stream. Still climbing. The voice from the vent had stopped, but its echo lived in her bones. Don't stop performing. She went to her laptop. It had powered itself back on. The stream was still live. She could see herself, standing in the middle of the room, lit by nothing but the candle on the kitchen table. The chat was active again. She's breaking. Let her see the basement. The noise is coming back. Then a user named Mirrormouth posted, "Scream for us." Emma stared at the screen. Her mind split, some part of it trying to calculate, what happens if she obeys? And the other part? It screamed, but, terrified. And the chat exploded. Hearts. Emojis. Names pouring in from nowhere. The viewer count shot up, 70 watching now. And climbing. She shut the laptop, shaking, and backed away. This wasn't random. This wasn't some stalker. It was a performance. And she was the main act. Somewhere behind the walls, the man was still there. Watching. Waiting. Moving in rhythm with her panic. She looked toward the floor, toward the hidden hallway behind the couch. She couldn't leave. Not through the door. Not through the windows. But she could go deeper. She grabbed the crowbar she'd found earlier and shoved the furniture aside. It took every ounce of her strength, but she got the hidden wall open again. Silence greeted her. She stepped into the hallway. This time, the smell was worse. And the air was warmer. There was something humid about it, as if the walls themselves were sweating. As if they liked it. She passed the room with the mattress, avoiding the mirror on the floor. Its surface was cracked now. Something moved in the shards. Farther in, the hallway bent. Twisted. Angled downward. This part hadn't been on the blueprint. There were claw marks on the walls. Deep gouges, like someone had tried to stop themselves from being dragged further in. Blood on the edges, old and flaking. She kept going. Until she reached a narrow stairwell. Concrete steps, slick with rainwater, led downward. Into the basement she didn't know existed. At the bottom, there was a steel door. Heavy. Rusted. Barely cracked open. Behind it, a low humming. A mechanical drone. And beneath that, breathing. Emma pushed the door open. The room was dark. Except for the glow of screens. Dozens of them. Each one streaming someone. Not just her. Other people. Other apartments. Other lives. All being watched. All being performed. And in the center of the room, sitting in front of the main console, was Julia. Or what was left of her. Julia didn't move. Her body sat slumped in the chair, head tilted slightly to one side, hair matted and dull. One eye was missing. The socket was sewn shut with thick, black thread. Her skin was pale, drained of color, but her other eye, glassy and open, stared directly at Emma. Still watching. Still performing. Cables trailed from the base of her skull into the computer. Wires laced through her arms, her wrists bound gently to the armrests with worn leather straps. Not for restraint, for presentation. A marionette for the watchers. Emma stepped forward slowly, bow rising in her throat. The screens flickered. Each one showed a different person. One brushing their teeth. One cooking. One lying in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. None of them aware. All of them live. At the top left of the central monitor, Emma's stream was still running. A feed from the living room. Another from the bathroom. A third from inside the hidden hallway, looking back at her. She turned slowly toward the corner of the room. There he was. No mask now. The man who lived in the walls. He was hunched, tall even when curled forward. Skin pale and stretched. Lips too thin, too wide, grinning with quiet delight. His eyes shimmered, not from light, but from reflection, like glass marbles soaked in oil. He didn't rush. He just watched. He tilted his head as if waiting for her next move. Emma stepped closer to the console. He took a step forward. She held up the crowbar. The man paused. Smiled wider. The test. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. The interface was old. Custom. No labels. Just strings of code, open pathways, user counts. But one tab stood out, broadcast control. She clicked it. The list of streamers lit up. IP addresses. Apartment names. Every feed labeled by city and floor. Hers was tagged live_06B_host_003. The third one. She looked toward Julia again. The second. There had been one before her. The man moved closer, still silent, his breath audible now, shallow, raspy, inhuman. Emma didn't look at him. She moved the cursor to the disconnect all button. The chat on screen surged. What is she doing? No. She's breaking the stream. And then a final message from Rainwatcher. If you cut the feed, you'll be alone with him. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. Then she clicked. Everything went black. The screens died. The drone stopped. The basement fell into pure silence. No breathing. No movement. She was alone. Until something moved behind her. Fast. She turned and swung the crowbar with everything she had. It connected. The man shrieked. Not loud. Not human. A sharp intake of air, like metal grinding through teeth. She ran. Up the stairs. Through the hallway. Past the photos and the mattress. Out the hidden door. She didn't look back. She ran to the front door, grabbed the keys from the floor, and slammed them into the lock. This time, it opened. The rain hit her like ice. She fled into the storm, barefoot, soaked, half mad with fear. But she didn't stop. She didn't look back. The stream never resumed. The apartment was emptied. Realist a month later. Unit 6B. Newly renovated. Quiet neighbors. Great view of the rain. And in the back of the mirror, something still breathes.